to the Phantom Zone.
Hello. In this Mean Girls episode, Kara becomes the Miss Sweet Corn. Then in Cure, he was there. Maybe, kinda, sorta. This is the Smallville Chronicles. Hello, welcome back. We are continuing with Season 7. As always, I am joined by the illustrious Alan Muir.
How goes it?
It goes great because somehow we've willed the existence of Smallville coming back in some form. We had Crisis, and I think Crisis has a lot to do with the newest news story, and that is Welling and Rosenbaum are working on an animated series.
Yeah, there was a con right before, I think it was either during COVID or before COVID, and he Rosenbaum was just like, yeah, let's do like an animated like an animated version of the show, but so we don't have to Rosenbaum won't have to shave his head, or so they could just simply do it, and
it's easier to get everyone to do so, especially now. I follow a lot of voiceover people and not voiceover, what do you call it, like voice actors, and COVID's kind of completely changed the industry because there's no need for expensive sound booths anymore to do that work. Everyone just does it from their house. They just built a room or put it in a closet, and that's all they have to do now. It doesn't sound any different because all the newer animated stuff that's been made in the last year, that's how they've done it, and all the commercials and all that kind of stuff. So it's even easier. They don't have to travel. And I do think Rosenbaum's podcast being fairly big as it is, and Crisis probably really helped bring back the show. Also, it's the Superman and Lois being as good as it is. There's just good hype around everything. And, they talked about wanting to bring back as many of the original cast members as they can. There's obviously
one that won't
one that won't be for sure. But I'm sure Glover will 100% do it. I'm sure Kirk would do it. I'm so bad I can't remember the actress who plays Lois. I'm sure she'll do it because she's done several episodes of Supergirl. The one that's done the least kind of on screen stuff is really Rosenbaum. Except for the stuff he's done with Gunn. Because even though it was several years ago now, Welling was on Lucifer, Glover was on Lucifer, this brand new season that just dropped. I don't know if you knew that.
No. I know that Glover was doing he was the big bad of, or at least a bad person on Fear the Walking Dead.
Yes, he's going to be, he's on that, and he's on the first episode of the new season of Lucifer. He doesn't play any specific character, but it's just this is the 17th DC property he's worked on. All the way from Batman and Robin to who was he in the animated?
Riddler.
Riddler. Okay, that's what I thought. I was I know he auditioned for Mr. Freeze, but did not get it. But I was I think it's Riddler. Then he's in Shazam. He won't be in Shazam 2. Which, and then he hasn't been on any of the newer CW stuff since the Shazam was the one that he's on. Then he did Lucifer this past year or so, which is the easiest show to do because they filmed the whole thing in LA, so doesn't need to go anywhere. So it's kind of exciting. I think it's very easy for them to do an animated show, and it'll be interesting to see when the show takes place. Is it connecting? Obviously, there's a ton of timeline between the end of season 10 and what we see in Crisis. How much of those comics are continuity?
I mean, there are characters who appear in those comics that
they're never going to show up in this cartoon. Well, they could show up in the cartoon, but because they use a lot of Bat characters, right?
Yeah, Batman is obviously character. His Robin is actually Barbara Gordon, which I actually thought was a nice twist.
That's interesting to do. But there's a ton of stuff they can I think it makes sense for them to play around in that gap. and to kind of show how Clark gets to where he is and how Lex becomes the president. And I think also kind of leading into this, which could make it actually happen, besides like Crisis and like kind of the fan stuff, is that all this other animated stuff has been doing really well. Harley Quinn, the first 2 seasons, and they're working on the third one, are amazing. I was super skeptical when that was announced, and it's so good. I really liked Invincible, which is kind of a very like slimmed down animation style. It's much more throwback to like the Bruce Timm design style. Although I did watch the first episode of MODOK and I hated it. Like, I really did not like it. I don't even know who the show is for. I don't get it. But I don't know. I'm always like, DC's been doing a lot of stuff in the animation field that's like very much home run or falling on their face. So I've heard good things about the Batman Dragon animated movie that came out this past year, the like Kung Fu animated one.
Yeah, I really desperately want to see the JSA film or animated film.
Yeah, the new one, right?
Yeah,
I like ended up they put out so many that like I catch up and then I'm like five movies behind immediately. Because I don't even remember. I think the last one I watched was like Apocalypse War, whatever the final one of that series was.
Yeah, and I think there's only been there's the Superman one, and then there was JSA World War II.
Yeah, there was Superman, Man of Tomorrow, Batman, Soul of the Dragon, Justice Society, World War II. The ones I've missed, I haven't watched yet, are the ones right before Apocalypse War, which were Red Sun and Bloodlines. I did not watch. And I don't think I watched the Batman TMNT one either. And Batman Ninja I didn't watch. So there's like 5 of them I haven't seen. But most of them are pretty good. Some of them are really, really bad. But yeah, it's kind of cool to see that this is happening. And, it's in the news, and that for the most part, that Welling is up to do it. Because I feel like I'm guessing he had a really good experience doing the Crisis thing and with fans. And that's kind of reignited his interest in doing it in any way. So who knows? Maybe in 2020 or probably 23 would be like possibly the earliest it comes out, because they haven't even like got any. It's just like that they want to do it.
Yeah, I imagine that'd probably be on HBO Max.
Yeah, I would 100% think that. There's really nowhere else it could possibly be, unless they did like a CW seed thing, like that CW had been doing, which I think I have never seen the Ray. I think that's the one I have not seen. But those are actually really good too. The Constantine one's really good, and of those, I think there's like a Vixen one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it'd be cool to see all that. I don't know. It's just like, it's also at a time where who knows what's going on with Warner Brothers and DC property itself. So it maybe be on Discovery Plus. So let's talk about the show. So we have our 2 episodes today. The first one is Fierce. This is definitely an episode that's taking a lot from the era, because when did Mean Girls come out? It's got to be close to around this time. Oh no, Mean Girls was out in 2004. So it's like 3 years before this, but like this has a lot of those vibes. I feel like this is where like they're trying different stuff with Kara, and then they just can never really solidly figure it out. They also like are really bad at like over sexualizing Vandervoort.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. But this first one, it's the Harvest Festival. We've seen it pretty much in every season, which I think it's really nice that they do. And Kara, going from the last episode, is looking for her blue crystal. And Clark's like, you shouldn't use your powers. You need to fit in. And she doesn't quite get it. I think this is a really weird shoehorned thing in where she sees Jimmy taking pictures and she's like attracted to him. It's interesting. I don't totally get it. But then 3 like of our girls for the episode, which is Tyler, Tempest, and Carly, show up. And that Clark says, oh, there's like this legend with the time capsule and all this hullabaloo. So we go to the farm, and Clark's working in the barn, and Lana shows up But he thinks it's Kara, so she puts her hand on his shoulder, and he turns around and sees it's Lana, and they're like, "Oh my god! But you were dead. But now I'm not dead. Oh my god!" While this is going on, Carly's on the phone, and they're talking about what she's going to do with the money. And she goes into the flower shop. The room freezes in seconds. So we got some meta powers. So we go back to Lana and Clark, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't want to tell you I was faking my death to protect you. And Chloe can't know I'm alive until like I clear my name because there's all this stuff going on." And Clark's like, "You could stay here." So she decides to move into the Kent farm. And this is when Kara shows up in red bikini and black heels. So she's gonna do the beauty contest, and Clark's like, "This is my 6-foot stunning blonde cousin that's now living in the house." And he's just like, "Oh, you shouldn't bring attention to yourself." Kara's like, "You got to be a football star. Why can't I do this?" Which is a very bad connection.
Comparison.
Yeah, comparison. But this is like all that weird, because it's funny that they didn't do this with really any of the other female characters. It's just Kara.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the next episode that there's even more of that.
I guess it's kind of like they're saying that because she's a Kryptonian, that she's so stunningly perfect that there's nothing else she can do, and that it's weird. There's a way to kind of do this where it's empowering, but this is not. And then so Clark is going to go show her some of the powers. So he shows her the heat vision. He's like, "Oh, look, I can draw a face of a watermelon." And instead she purposely blows it up and says I'm going to learn by myself. And she storms off. We go back to our trio. Tyler tells Tempest she had no choice and had to kill Carly. Kara then goes up to them and asks for help with her makeup. They ignore her, and Tempest makes a rude remark, and Kara leaves. It's upset. And she walks past the flower shop and sees Carly's corpse. So at Luthor Corp, Agent Carter, a different one, for the U.S. Department of Domestic Security, shows up to talk to Lex, and he's like, "We've been working on that drawing." And then we cut back to the Daily Planet, and Chloe's meeting with Jimmy, and he shows her Carly's frozen corpse. And Grant walks in, and he's like, he's talking to Lois, and he tells Chloe to chase the story. You go back to the Kent farm, and Clark is trying to explain to Lana how hard it is to tell Kara not to use her powers. And Lana's like, "You need to give Kara a chance." Then we go back to the Talon. So everybody's rehearsing. Jimmy's taking photos, and Kara's flirting with him for reasons. And then Jimmy spots the Tyler and Tempest being very shady in the back. And they're talking about Carly, and they need a distraction to go after the time capsule. So Jimmy takes a picture of them and leaves. When he gets to his car, suddenly gets super cold, and Jimmy starts to freeze. But as Tyler leaves, Kara rips open the door and gets Jimmy out of there. So this is where it's kind of similar to stuff Clark did, and I get that that's what they're going for with Jimmy as the damsel that Lana very much was in early seasons, which is fun.
And recycling or giving Clark the Jonathan role.
Yeah, exactly. I think it would have worked if Kara was younger.
Yeah,
she's the same age as him. If she was a teenager, I think it would have worked better. So Lex shows up at the farm to talk with Lana. She asks him if he took care of everything as he said, and he says yes. And he says, "I did everything I did because I loved you." And Lana's like, "You don't have a right to do this." And there's a door. And Lex is tell that Clark's cousin's visiting, and he looks forward to meeting her because obviously that's who saved him. Also very reminiscent of Clark saving him in season 1. So Clark and Chloe go to the hospital, and Kara's there. She's watching over Jimmy. So this is where we get our unnecessary love triangle for this point. Again, with Chloe. Clark's concerned that someone might have seen her use her powers. Kara's like, "Well, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. I was too busy saving Jimmy's life," and storms off. And Clark's like, yeah, but maybe you should have let the kids drown. So there have been Chloe gives information to Clark that there's 3 Meteor Freak girls who have been doing robberies throughout the Midwest, and she thinks that they plan to steal the time capsule. Well, that sounds a lot like our group we've been watching. So Kara's practicing backstage, and Tyler and Tempest say they know she has powers, so that they want her help. And they're like, you need to get this time capsule. And what Kara spots is there's a Kryptonian medallion in it. So she's like, sure, I'll help. And Tyler and Tempest go to the time capsule, and they see that Kara has taken the map, and they head off to the pageant, and they're all participating. And so Clark arrives, and then we cut back to the Lex stuff, and basically they're like, oh, they're like, the woman you're looking for doesn't exist. She's a fantasy, but it's literally just like a picture. Like, I don't understand how they could tell anything from like this artist rendition of
that doesn't even look like her.
Yeah, it's like, it's a beautiful blonde woman. This doesn't exist. And so here's what's going on in Smallville. So whatever, but I guess that's because he's still keeping tabs on everybody. And Kara wins, but the sheriff comes and arrests her. And Clark arrives, and the sheriff, goes to the sheriff, and Kara's in a holding cell. He's like, and he's like, why did you steal the map? And she's like, the thing inside is Kryptonian. And I didn't tell you because you've been completely uninterested or condescending towards me. And she's like, why don't I just bend the bars and get out of here? And he's like, no, you can't do that. Like, we'll figure out a way to get you out legally. Which again, this is something they could have done better. Again, if it was like a younger character of like, why are we even bothering with this stuff? Which I think is what they're trying to go for with this episode of like bothering with humanity, but it's just done very poorly. It's something that they end up doing slightly better in like season 9 with the Zod stuff, I think.
Yeah.
So Clark's like, can you tell me where the map is? And she's like, well, a freak gust of wind blew it away. Clark's like, oh, whatever. And Chloe diffuses it, and Kara asks what was on it, and she's like, so then they go to a gas station town. Tyler and Tempest have dug up the treasure, but they don't think it's anything. Clark appears, Tempest uses her powers and throws a tornado at him. Oh no. Which unearths meteor rocks, which I guess. Then Kara shows up, and she stops them, and Clark's like, thank you. And they hug. So they have the medallion, and she's like, it must be an SOS. She says and then she's like, I got a job at the Talon as a waitress, but I'll work harder to not expose my powers. And, she's like, we're not actually human, and we never will be, and it's something you need to deal with. And she's like, you and Lana will never like grow old together. Which is something that's like has been done and is kind of the best thing to do in Superman stories, I think, is to have him deal with his trying to be human when he's not, and like that struggle.
And that every attachment he'll make will one day wither and die.
Yeah, and Kara is a good way of addressing it. It just doesn't work well in for this version of like them in the writing. Not that Vandermark couldn't do it. The writing is just very poor. So Jimmy's dropping off Chloe at the apartment, and he's like, yeah, I kind of understand like how you think all the metahumans eventually become psychotic, which obviously Chloe's like, ugh. And because she's obviously a metahuman. And he's like, I'll help you get rid of all the meteor freaks in this town. And then Kara shows up to get her bag. And Chloe's like, oh, like you and Kara, and again, unnecessary love triangle. It's also like kind of shitty to Chloe's character to make her once again like,
yeah, after all she's been through, that there's a Kryptonian.
Yeah,
is standing in her way.
Yeah, and just like that, they obviously make her out to be like the not as pretty one compared to Lana, and now Kara, like that she's like the frumpy friend, which she's not, but like that's what their writing implies, and it's weird. It's just annoying. It's like it feels like a very much a step backwards for Chloe. And then so Clark and Lana, they're walking through the carnival, and Lana's like, I thought you wouldn't forgive me for marrying Lex, and Clark's like, nothing could ever change the way I feel about you. And she's like, I don't want the past to come between us. So they decide to start dating. And then what Lex's guy's like, we found the girl. She's working at that talent. And so he goes and shows up there. She's like, thank you. Thanks for saving my life. And she's like, I didn't do it. And he's like, yeah, okay. I'm going to find out the truth. This is totally like with Clark. So that's where this episode ends.
I did not like this episode at all.
So apparently this was a cross promotion with America's Next Top Model. And one of the girls was one of the winner of America's Next Top Model. This is just like not great. Like there was something that they could have done here, but like it's just not handled well, like at all from anyone. And sadly, it's kind of this is what Kara is for most of the show. And it could be better, which it sucks because like I feel like as little time as Raya got on the show, she was handled so much better.
Yeah.
So it sucks that this is what Kara ends up becoming, because I don't think Vandervoort's a bad choice for Supergirl. Like, I think she does a perfectly fine job. It's just the writing around the character. And I think, talking about last time, I think it's a lot of the issue of, and it's easier than say like Kid Flash to Flash, because there's more of a give and take you could have between Superman and Supergirl, where like he's teaching her to be like about humanity and Earth, and she's like relaying like Krypton to him. And they just do it so poorly, and then they just give up. Because isn't she like gone really soon, like into the season? She like disappears for like 3 or 4 episodes.
Yeah, and she returns season 10, then leaves again to go work or most of the handling of Supergirl in the show is mainly like this Silver Age stuff. Hence the way her stuff with Jimmy Olsen.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that was, even the stuff that was mentioned on Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah, like, and even in that show, they don't handle her in Superman cartoon. They don't handle her the best, because don't they pretty much just like send her off to go with the Legion?
Yeah, they do the same thing in season 10.
Yeah, it's
at a certain point she just slips up, puts on the Legion ring, and goes to the future.
Yeah, I feel like that's super lazy.
It's literally just writing the character off because they couldn't find a good way to handle said character.
Yeah, interesting, because that's kind of what happens what happened in many ways in the Flash TV show with Kid Flash. And I'm not looking forward to Impulse.
Oh man.
But that also had like some mixed things because the actor had stuff going on. But they still didn't do a great job of running it. Where on the flip side, like I think Arrow did like a really good job with that. With kind of with Arsenal and then Speedy and Diggle, like did a really good job of having sidekicks that like you actually cared about all of them. So I think it's an issue, and you see it in the show. Like we never get a powered member of the team that's a consistent character, like that's part of the cast. And I think it's because it's hard to have a show with multiple powered characters where like things should already be finished fairly quickly with Superman in your show. Like, but if you have 2 superpowered characters, it should be even quicker. And I think it's a problem a lot of these shows have, even like the current ones. Except for maybe like Black Lightning has never had that issue, but Supergirl for sure has, and adjusted and fixed it in many ways. But yeah, it's just like, I guess it's hard for a lot of writers to deal with stuff. And I don't know if it's that like, I feel like maybe they're more now embracing like the comic book side of stuff, where like the comic book writers to get involved to like, and reading more stuff to actually borrow those stories. But yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty not great episode. The second one is interesting, and I don't know how to feel about it, because I like the idea. I like the idea following what we talked about, like what Kara was talked about in this when we just finished. Conceptually, I'm confused of why we don't get the reveal of who this character obviously is. Because it would be an interesting season, like a character to be in a Superman show. who was sadly very terribly used in Legends of Tomorrow. Although when he returned for one episode, like one shot in one episode, he's great. But this
So
episode
the reason said character wasn't revealed to be that character, apparently he was off limits.
For what?
He was off limits for Smallville.
Yeah, but I mean, like, as for him doing what? Like, what else? Well, there was nothing. What was going on? Where they weren't going to use him. So you have they were going to use him in any of the Nolan Batman movies, and this is after Superman Returns at this point, right?
Yeah, this is actually. I'm pretty sure it's around the time that Justice League Mortal was having its trouble.
Yeah, during the writer's strike time, right?
Yeah, and even then, that was Maxwell Lord was going to be the villain of that movie.
Mm-hmm. And I don't remember what other movies were even in talks at that time. I don't think there was unless they were going to spin off those guys into other movies, but it's goofy. The character we're talking about is Vandal Savage. Great character the way he's using the Justice League cartoons. Spanning the whole series, he's a great villain. In the animated, was he in Young Justice? He's used very well. And he's in one of the animated movies too, isn't he?
Yeah, he was in Justice League Doom.
Yeah, and he's used well because he's a good character for especially Superman. Because he is kind of a guy, he's Batman level guy, person, but he's unkillable. And what's kind of funny is they kind of do this thing for Welling's character in Lucifer. Spoiler alert, when he plays Kane, it's very, very similar setup. And he does a great job with it because it is an interesting character to put in with you have your unstoppable force versus your movable object. There's nothing Clark can really do. And then they get rid of him in a very goofy way. So we'll go through it. So in this episode, we open up with a lot of the repercussions of the last, really the Jimmy Chloe discussion. And so they're having coffee at the Talon, and Jimmy's like, "Oh, look, I got these tickets for this concert, for us to go out to." And Chloe kind of blows him off when she sees someone, and it's Sasha Woodman. So we would remember this from season 1.
Yeah.
So she was the girl who could control bees, who they then defeated because the bees turned on her, I think. Because
it was for what, class president or something?
Yeah. So she's fine, and Chloe's like, "How the hell did you escape El Rev?" And she's just like, "I was cured." And he says, "I don't really remember the last 6 years." Red flag. But I underwent the procedure with Dr. Curtis Knox. Sasha leaves, goes to the car. Knox shows up. He's like, "You have something I need." And then chloroforms her and takes her away, which, okay. So we immediately know he's super evil. And Dr. Knox is being played by Dean Cain.
I can totally picture Dean Cain doing something like that.
Yeah, so Dean Cain played Clark Kent Superman in Lois and Clark, The Adventures of Superman. He was also in Supergirl as Jeremiah Danvers. He's also done the voice of Jonathan Kent in the DC Superhero Girls. And he's also a crazy nut job.
He's a terrible person.
Yeah, I don't remember.
He made a comment saying that, I think it was Superman wouldn't be he wouldn't be able to be all he could in today's landscape. It's just I remember, I think it was on Fox News where he was.
Yeah, he's super, super right wing, crazy. And he's very much in Kevin Sorbo. There's a couple of those guys who are 90s actors who are super crazy now, who did all these shows that in nerddom people love and grew up with, The Adventures of Superman and Lois, Hercules, The Legendary Adventures, and they bring them back because Kevin Sorbo was also on Supergirl. And then everyone's like, "Oh, Twitter showed us you guys are fucking creeps." But yeah, I don't know, he's a douche. And Supergirl killed him off screen, which I like. So yeah, Knox drags her away. So in the morning, Kara sees Lana making breakfast for Clark, and Clark comes downstairs, and the Martian Manhunter appears, but he's not green. He's just a dude. And this is the first time we've seen him in a bit, I think.
Yeah, near the end.
Yeah, he showed up the first time. Yeah, this is the first time. Like, oh, you, the Manhunter, you're the one who like kicked my family out of my home. And Clark's like, but him and my dad were really good friends. And then Kara's like, watch your back around this one, and she speeds away. And Lana's like, okay, and kind of goes away. But she doesn't know. She obviously knows Kara's like Kryptonian, but she doesn't know that like.
Yeah, she goes. Is he another Kryptonian too? And Clark just says, or Clark says Mars actually, and she just goes, I'm gonna be. I'll excuse myself.
Yeah, because like she's almost doing like the beginning of the audience surrogates of like, oh yeah, this is when the show's getting
really weird.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna call him John Jones because I feel it's Jean. I'll just call him so. Jean tells Clark that Kara's dangerous, and Clark's like, but she's my cousin. She's the only Kryptonian family I have left. And he's like, you don't get it. Her dad's Zor-El, total douche, tried to assassinate your dad. That's why we moved them out from where they lived. Clark's like, oh. And he's like, yeah, you better find that crystal before she does, or she's going to destroy everything you love. Cut to Kara's in the loft, like, super eavesdropping. Literally, super hearing eavesdropping. So cut to, hey, no surprise, Lex's meeting with Dr. Knox. They're in the library on one of our major sets. And they've been working on the cure for metahumans. So Lex is like, what the hell is with these tests that you're doing on 33.1? I never approved of this. And Knox is like, yeah, whatever. Like, you can't make an omelet without breaking any eggs. It's like, what about these missing patients? It's like, who cares? Maybe if they lost their memory and then they wandered off.
And he also drops he mentions that Lex requested or like directed him to cut the 6 year the 6 year of memories lost.
Yeah, Lex wanted was like, oh, I made that to get rid of all their bad feelings. It's like, yeah, it's totally not so they remembered you having anything to do with it. And not just pieces out. Like, I love how much of like a he doesn't give a fuck attitude. Like, he's just like above it all because the character he is supposed to be would be that. And it's like, I do think in the long run, like this is a very interesting take on this character that isn't officially this character, but like I like it. So we cut to this crazy bedroom, and Knox is caring for this unconscious woman. There are a bunch of creepy jars and green liquid, and there's life support machinery. And he kisses her and says, I found another piece of the puzzle. And then he puts on an apron and like just goes to carve up Sasha and takes some sort of organ out of her abdomen, and she dies. So at the planet, Chloe's researching Knox, and Jimmy's excited about their plans, and she blows him off. She's like, I have a hot story to chase, and Jimmy's like, oh man. And he's like, all you talk about is meteor freaks. They should all be locked up. And he storms off just as Clark super speeds in. And Clark's like, you need to drop whatever you're doing. We need to find Kara's crystal. And Chloe's upset, obviously, because of what Jimmy just said. And she snaps at him, and she storms away. And Clark's like, what's going on? But also, like, Clark, literally the world does not revolve around you.
This was a great way to show like Chloe like not having any of it, and they're just like getting like really fed up.
Yeah, she's like, I am not just the girl behind the computer. Like, she has her own shit going on. So obviously we go to Chloe's kind of version of like Rogue in X-Men 3, where she goes to Dr. Knox because she wants to get cured. So Lana's in the loft, and she's texting someone, IMing someone, which is a weird thing to say. I haven't said it forever. That the Metropolis location is satisfactory, and sends a payment, blah, blah. Clark shows up. It's like, hey, like, Lana's like, why isn't Chloe looking for the crystal? And Clark's like, has Chloe opened up to you? Lana says, like, she just works 24/7. She's trying to impress the new editor. And he's like, oh, Chloe's been researching this Dr. Knox guy. And then Lana's like, oh, I know that guy. He works with meteor affected people. And Clark's like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah, like, I've been doing research on people who Lex has victimized. And Knox says that he claims to cure them with brain surgery. I was like, oh, and he's like, I'm guessing Chloe's researching to like get a headline, and Clark's like, oh shit, because only he knows that she's infected or that she's a meta, which her meta power is healing tears at this point.
Yeah, basically a D&D move.
Yeah. Oh my god, it literally is, because then she's like out for several turns. She has like a really long what do you call it, like time to like a casting time. So Kara asked Jimmy if he's seen Lois because she wants to ask about her ship, which Lois had reported that she found because and then Kara's like, yeah, because I'm an ET junkie. And Jimmy's like, she's out of town, that's why she's not in this episode. And she wasn't able to get any clear images of it anyway. And so then Kara flirts with him and is like, well, maybe you could do a better job. And he's like, well, my evening's free, so I can help. And Kara kisses him on the cheek. This is terrible, but okay. Like, I hate it. Sorry, something's weird going on outside, and hopefully it doesn't pick it up. So Chloe's at home. She's writing a letter to Jimmy when Clark arrives. And he's like, I know what you're doing. You want to get the procedure. And she's like, you can't talk me out of it. And Clark's like, or she's like, it's my only chance for a normal life. Like, what if I become psychotic or murderous? Which I believe she's referencing like the stuff with her mom that we don't know about totally yet.
Yeah.
And even if I don't, the next time I heal someone, I might not come back from the dead. And Clark's like, you don't know the side effects. It's like maybe memory loss. And Clark's like, you're willing to forget all your friends and all your experiences. Chloe's like, yep, I don't care. And then we see Dr. Knox is dropping Sausage's body off at the fertilizer plant, which is actually not a terrible place. When Lex catches him, and he's like, I won't let you kill anyone else. And Knox is like, yeah, well, I have the cure for them. And I made them forget, what you did, Lex. It's like, I only worked with you because, like, a couple of the people had stuff I need. Lex pulls a gun, shoots him in the chest, Knox goes down, but he gets back up, unharmed. And he cracks Lex in the head with a flashlight.
There's CT of this episode.
Yeah. Obviously, Lex was astonished that he got shot. And then he's going to kill him. Then Clark super speeds and knocks him out into a power line and gets Lex and leaves. And he cut back to the dumb Jimmy Kara thing, and he reveals that like it's in a government warehouse. And Jimmy wants to give it to Chloe because he does want to get back with her. And Kara's like, please don't, because she would just tell Clark, and I don't want him to know. And basically, this is again them flipping the stuff, the relationship Clark had with Chloe, with Kara, with Jimmy, but in a much worse written way. And then Chloe shows up, and then he's like trying to explain away, and Chloe's like, yeah, I get it, and just throws away the letter she wrote, which would have probably been like explaining her what she's doing and why she's doing it and her feelings for him, but she throws it away. And so we go, Lex is in the hospital because he got cracked in the head with a flashlight. And he's like, Clark, why are you here? And it's like, oh, let me guess, Lana told you all about him. And did you know she stole $10 million as uncovering like my company secrets? And he's like, yeah, well, for you, that should be money well spent, because if she didn't tell me, I wouldn't have gotten there and saved you from him, so you'd be in the morgue. And he's like, but I'm pissed off that like I accidentally killed him. And he's like, oh, no, dude, that guy's immortal. I totally know because I shot him in the chest 6 times. It's not because like maybe he was wearing a bulletproof vest. Like he definitely should have died. Which is something that like they could have shown better. But they don't. And then he's like, Knox is murdering his patients. And then we go to Chloe's at Knox's Dr. Frankenstein lab, and there's nobody else there. And it's like, oh, you have elevated meteor rock concentration in your heart. That's why you can love someone and cry and save them. Which makes no sense. Chloe gets obviously the murdery vibe, so she tries to run, and Knox chloroforms her. And Clark asks Jimmy if he knows where Chloe went, and Jimmy's like, here's the note, and she's like, I might not remember you, and he's like, oh shit, she went to go see the guy. And then Chloe wakes up on strapped to a table, which I feel like is like the 3rd time she's been woken up strapped to a table. if not more. Next to Knox's wife, Sophia. And she's like, "Oh, I could just heal her." He's like, "No, you don't get it. It's not that I want her healed. I want her to be able to live forever like me. And to do that, I need to get meteor rock concentrated organs and put them in her," which is insane, but also something I've seen in other shows do. I think it was like a part of a Hydra guy in one of the seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did the same thing. He took like an Inhuman who was immortal and like put all her parts in him, and then he became immortal. So yeah. So Clark gets there, obviously. Lex gets there like right afterwards, and he's not there. It's like, "Oh, I have evidence he's been around since like 1675." And then he's like, "Oh, look, here's a picture with the pocket watch." And it's like, "Oh, the instruction is Victorian arms." Like, that's like where Knox lived in 1920s. So Clark super speeds there right as Knox is pushing the knife into Chloe's chest, and he pushes him away, unbuckles Chloe, but then there's all the glowing green fluid, so he falls down, and him and Knox are fighting. They're destroying the medical equipment, and Clark collapses. But Chloe gets up, but Knox realizes that his wife is flatlined, and he's just like breaks down and is crying. And Chloe pushes the meteor rocks away, and they're just like, "Oh shit!" Like, it's kind of like that weird, which I do think is interesting, where it's like he's somebody doing a horrible thing, but for a kind of understandable reason. And this is where I think like this is a very interesting take on this character that would make sense and should hit home really hard with Clark, at least better. And it kind of does, but then it's kind of completely forgotten soon.
Yeah, like he talks to Martian Manhunter or John Jones and asks so what'd you do with Knox? And it's simply just that, and there's no follow up of anything else. There's just, yep, he's taken care of.
I guess, is it implied he just throws them in the negative zone somehow, or is he just like killing them? Which I don't think is the case, because I think Knox comes back, doesn't he?
No, I think he was only one episode villain.
Oh, he comes back in the comic at some point. I have not read that. Yeah, I guess the assumption is, like, to me, the assumption is he just chucks them into the sun or something. Because if he's immortal, you don't really know. I guess he could suffocate him in space. But yeah, Manhunter brings up, it's like, yeah, like everybody else around you is going to die too, like of old age, and you're just going to be fine. And this is when like Kara shows up. It's like, you can't trust that guy. It's like, yeah, well, your dad was a traitor. And Clark's like, "Oh, come on, guys, can't we just be like cool?" And then Kara flies away. And Clark's like, "I wish I could fly." And sad. Not really, but yes.
That's basically like, I saw a comment on a YouTube video for the Booster Gold episode, season 10, and there's just like it's like the part where he flies off, and just someone just commented, "Clark must be thinking, damn, this is yet another person who can fly, yet I can't."
Mm-hmm. So the next day, Lana asks about the whole Knox thing, and he's like, "Yeah, Lex actually helped me find him and told me you stole 10 million." And Lana's like, "Yeah, Lex is just trying to destroy whatever is between us. The money was part of a divorce settlement, and I'm going to use it to help the meteor infected people." And Clark's kind of side eyeing it, but Lana hugs him, and she's like, "I never hide anything from you," which we'll learn. And Lana's entering an abandoned building where there's tons of high-tech surveillance equipment. She's using the spy Lex, and we see like cameras going into like the mansion and stuff.
And we also see the letters spelling out a word we cannot say.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. I feel like they'd have to be implying, because does she explain the name later on? I'm assuming it has to do with like the goddess, right?
Well, there's an episode where Lois gets possessed by that goddess.
We're talking about the goddess Isis, because like the goddess has like stuff with Black Adam, so like I understand that, but like it's just kind of used for no reason here.
Yeah, I think it was nothing more than an Easter egg.
Yeah. So Jimmy's waiting for Chloe, expecting her not to remember him, and he has like a keepsake full of mementos of the relationship. And they're like, she shows up, but she obviously didn't lose their memories, and they talk about all their happy moments. Like, why can't we, like, how about we agree in the future to be normal and close? Like, I can't promise you that. And Jimmy's like, are you mad at me for helping Kara? And it's like, no, it has nothing to do with it. He's like, okay, well, I care about you. I'll wait patiently. I wish you could tell me what the problem is, but you can't. And then Jimmy's like, you know what? I can't. If you can't tell me, then I can't do this. And he breaks up with her again, which I didn't realize they were together again. But yeah, so that happened. And that's where we leave this. I don't know, like, it's goofy. Like, there are definitely, like, okay, I found why they have the name. Apparently, Chloe said something to Lana in an episode where, like, Isis is the goddess of love, life, and healing, and that's why she chose it. But it is named after the Egyptian goddess. It's dumb though. So yeah, I don't know. It's goofy. I do think there are some good ideas here. Like, I think all the stuff with Knox, you know, as a Vandal Savage, if, like, I would consider him a Vandal Savage. Like, I think it's a really good take, but he's kind of wasted. He could have been a really good season villain, and he just goes away. But it's not a terrible episode. It's pretty good. I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts before we preview the next two?
Yeah. I'm sort of glad they didn't have, like, they had him be Nox and not Vandal Savage. Like, I have a feeling that there's, like, for the casual audience, they would not know who that character is because he hasn't appeared in anything they'd know of.
Yeah, pretty much only the cartoon at that point.
Yeah.
I think it would have been interesting if, like, the image, like, oh, look, when he, in 18 whatever, he was going by the name, like, Savage or Vandal. That would have been fine. Yeah. That would have been enough for me. So I guess right here we take a look at the trailers for next week's 2 episodes.
Next Thursday, each step she takes, it's only a matter of time before you get found out.
I don't have to listen to you.
Could be her last.
Where is she left?
No more games. All new Smallville, next Thursday at 8/7 Central on the CW.
All right, so our first one was action. It's, hey, they're doing a movie on that thing, and they're using the farm, and oh, look, Clark is actually going to be in the movie. I only saw this in a Dragon Ball Z episode with the Great Saiyaman. But we do get to find out where Lionel has been this whole time.
Yeah.
And then our second episode is Laura, after Laura L., starring the amazing Helen Slater, who played Supergirl in the 80s and has played, I can't remember her name, but, like, whatever, Danvers, Kara Danvers' mom on Supergirl. And she's been really good in that show when she's been on it. And it is a really interesting episode that is kind of, unbeknownst to the writers, like, really good foreshadowing to, like, future stuff that they end up doing. And I think it works really, really well. Including to, like, I don't know, Laura as a character is, and we'll get into it next time, is such a good character in, like, the Superman mythos and story to use, because she gets so little, she has gotten so little time compared to Jor-El that I love stories with her. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about that one next week. And I guess we could do some plugs. Basically, for me, you know, check out the other shows. I believe we are doing some Marvel Comics talk, but a lot of, like, X-Men talk, as the Hellfire Gala is wrapping up. Before we do, like, some more movie stuff. Al, what do you have?
On the 5th, we're announcing something big that we've been waiting months and months to announce, and there's gonna be there's gonna be one big change coming to VGU.TV. So head there on the 5th of July, and subscribe to the podcast feeds, Hyper Time the Podcast and VGU.TV podcasts.
Yep. And you can find a link to VGU TV in the podcast description, or if you're looking on YouTube, it's in the description there. That just about does it for us this week. I am Lou Gonzalez.
And I'm Alan Muir, and this podcast stands for Truth, Justice, and American Way.